Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond Compatibility, the podcast where we explore what makes relationships truly work. I am Lucas, and here we talk about love, connections, and what keeps them strong. Whether you're single, in a relationship, or just curious about the dynamics of compatibility, there is something here for you. In today's episode, we talk with Julia, a professional writer and creator of the journaling workshop Reflections and Connections. In this workshop, people gather to deepen their self-awareness and relationships. We explore the powerful role of self-reflection, journaling, and active listening as pathways to understanding oneself and connecting with others. Expect to learn about the benefits of taking time to reflect on your experiences, the importance of sharing in a supportive environment, and how these practices can strengthen relationships by fostering empathy and self-awareness. You'll love this conversation. Welcome, Julia.
Hi, Lucas. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm very excited that you are here. How do you feel today?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. It's a pleasure for me to have you here. So for the people that may be listening to us and maybe they don't know you, what do you do professionally?
So I have always been a writer. In my day job, I'm a copywriter. So I write for philanthropic organizations and companies and help them with their online communication. And a passion project of mine is a guided journaling workshop, which is called Reflections and Connections.
Okay, and what is this reflections and connections, this passion that you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's a workshop that brings people together. The name is Reflections and Connections, so it's about reflecting on your life, your desires, what's going on with you, how you might want to change, and connecting on a deeper level with yourself and also the other participants of the workshop in an intimate way, in a really safe, supported environment that's guided by me.
Oh, okay, so it sounds really good. But how is the process? How do you connect or create intimacy with this group of people that assist to your workshop?
So we always start by having a guided meditation to kind of get everyone to leave behind whatever they were doing throughout the day and just really arrive in the present moment. And then I will guide everyone through a series of journaling prompts. So I'll give you one thing to think about, and then depending on the prompt, people get 5 to maybe 10, 15 minutes to think and make notes that always stay private to each individual. And then we'll also have a couple of one-on-one sharing sessions. So once people have responded to maybe 3, 4 prompts, people will be paired up with someone that they don't know yet. And each person gets space to express aloud their reflections on what they wrote down. So you get to verbalize what happened in the journaling, and it's a chance to make sense of what you put down on the page.
Oh, okay. So I understand that there is a meditation to set up the tone, but the key element is the journaling part, right?
The journaling part is the key element, and the other important part is the sharing session.
Okay, I see. And what do you ask them to write in this journaling session?
So it's different each time, but we always start by gathering some data, as I like to call it. So we'll look back at a time period, usually maybe the last month, and the first prompt is always write down everything that has happened. And this is no judgment, no like, oh, I wish I had done something else, or this was really great, just the facts. And it helps people get a bird's eye view of what's actually going on in their life. Because sometimes if someone asks you, how's your week going? You respond based on how you feel right now in this moment, not on the actual facts of how it has actually been going for the last week. And so having this list of all the things that have happened in the last month is often the prompt that people are the most surprised by, because they see, like, oh, I thought that I was really stressed with work and that's all that was happening in my life. But actually, I see that I went out for dinner, I went for a walk, I met this person, I had a call with my friend, and there are many beautiful moments in between, realizing that maybe things are better than I thought, or oh, look, all I did was work this month. I did nothing social. Huh, like, oh, I didn't realize.
Oh, but that's very interesting because at least on my end, sometimes I navigate life in a way that I looking forward all the time, and these kind of questions probably force me to think.
Yeah.
So I believe that people start looking at calendar or something, right?
Yes, and I also encourage people in this prompt to grab their phone and take a look at their calendar and also a look through their photos album. I don't know about you, but I tend to take a lot of photos in my daily life. And it became a habit when I started doing this prompt by myself every month. I would snap pictures to say, like, oh, I hope I remember this moment. Like, I saw this pretty flower. I had lunch with a friend. That maybe if I don't have it in my calendar, it might get lost in my memory.
Ah, okay, so you reviewed your calendar and the pictures you took,
Yes.
and what do you do with this? You write it down.
Yes. So the first prompt is always just gathering information about what has life actually been looking like for me in the last, let's say, 4 weeks. And then we will move on to reflect on, for example, which of these things do I want to have more of in my life? What do I maybe want to cut out? What is going very well? So maybe you took time to play your guitar like once a week for the last month, and that's perfect. Doesn't need to change, but you want to keep it in your life the same way that it is. So that's how we usually begin all of the sessions, to get that bird's eye view and then see how you feel, if you feel satisfied, or maybe in the coming 4 weeks you want to change something.
Okay, but I understand that through the process, I can see the facts, what I did, what I liked, and what I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part about the emotion, how I felt about it,
Mm-hmm.
and or it's structurally the facts and.
Probably almost all of the prompts that come after that initial fact gathering have a little bit more to do with our emotions. So depending on the theme of the evening, I'll also ask, for example, what is a time in the last 4 weeks that you felt really proud of yourself? Or which person was especially meaningful to you recently and why? Or what have you learned in the last month that you would like to remember? Sometimes we learn the same lessons over and over again because we don't hold on to it, and then life teaches us again. So I like that prompt because it's maybe an impulse to take a hold of that information, like, oh, I learned something, and I want to remember it.
Oh, that's profound actually. And you mentioned that you have topics for the different sessions.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of topics
Mm-hmm.
are?
So sometimes it is more health and well-being. We have done something where we're doing more future planning. So something that I like to do at the end of the year is review everything that happened in the year and then look forward. So intention setting. So that is a more overall view of everything that's going on in life. So there'll be different pillars: work, friendships, health, interests, hobbies. And another focus could be relationships in the romantic sense, or relationships in a broader sense. I think in this time are a lot of people, especially living in a city like Berlin, a lot of people don't come from here. So they're not close to their family, and our friends become our support system. And sometimes our friends are almost as important or even more important than a romantic partner, because those are the support network people. So I like to put a focus on friendships as well, because those are intimate relationships just the same.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you say. Sometimes we overfocus on our romantic partners, but what is really, really relevant is that we have a network of people, friends that supports us, and we support them, and it's a great focus for to reflect and to make sure that we pay attention to them. You know?
Yes. I agree.
So we have different sessions, a topic on different ones. We gather the data, we reflect on what we did. What happens next?
So probably the sharing session will come next.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like to have 2 or 3 sharing sessions depending on how long the workshop is. And this is the part that I think for newbies to the workshop is the most intimidating. But it's also the part where I receive the most positive feedback, that people find this act of sharing incredibly valuable, because writing down, there's so much data out there that shows that journaling is good for your mental and even physical health. But for me also, speaking out loud and sort of making sense of, explaining something to someone helps me learn from myself. And I always share with everyone at the beginning of the session that when we do these sharing one-to-ones, this is a space for each person simply to express and to be heard. So the person that is listening, they don't offer feedback, they don't give their opinion or any advice. They are just there to act as like a safe space for the other person to express themselves and figure things out as they go. And it's really nice because also it's nice to hear someone else's process of figuring out what's going on in their life and what do they like, what do they not like, what is surprising to them, what do they want to change. And you get to listen without thinking about what am I going to say next.
No, I understand 100%. And so we have the journaling, we have the sharing session. And how, based on your experience or the feedback you received, how people feel like after doing the whole process?
Feedback that I receive pretty much every session is that it's amazing to people how quickly you can create an intimate connection, and people tend to be very surprised at how much they can relate to people that are strangers to them at the beginning. And so it's very comforting for people to realize that it's easy to connect to other people because they're probably going through something similar. Even if their life looks different to yours, they'll be able to relate in some way, and then we can learn from each other. So the feedback is, I would never have gone up to a stranger and told them intimate details about my life, but because you have this safe space and each person is vulnerable with the other, it's a really nice feeling of being cared for in a community setting.
Okay, how do you create this safe space?
It happens kind of magically. I think because people are reflecting, and it's something that we maybe don't do that often because we're busy, we're looking ahead, we're making plans, we have responsibilities. It's not often that you get to sit down and just give yourself your 100% full attention. So you become a little bit vulnerable with yourself, and to let somebody else in on that is a sort of automatic softening. And if you're going to offer it up to somebody else, then you want to offer the same feeling of comfort and safety to the other person. Maybe it's some kind of magic that happens when you reflect, that you connect with yourself and you connect with others as well. But it happens very quickly. I think it's intimidating maybe to talk to someone that doesn't know you, but I find it easier because that other person won't judge you. They don't know anything about your life. And on a surface level, they're not invested in what's going on. So they listen in a very neutral space, which is why I like to pair people with someone they don't know. It's actually less scary to share.
Yeah, I understand. And is this possible with a person that you already know?
It is possible. It's not always possible to put someone that pair everybody with somebody they don't know. If like maybe people come with friends, um, it's possible to do that. I think you just have an extra layer of expressing trust to that other person. And so I like to remind people again, this is not a space for offering advice. You just listen. And I think that helps because you're not coming to someone to ask for help, but just to be heard.
Yeah, when you are sharing something, people have difficult lives sometimes. We all have difficult lives, and sometimes we need to share something very deep, but also could be very traumatic. In this space, you can share those things too.
Yeah, I always remind people that it's okay to decide how much you want to share. And if you want to share something that could be traumatic to you, maybe to ask the other person if they have space for that. So far, we haven't had any problems at all in the year that I've been doing these sessions. Sometimes people really open up though, and it helps them. And it's so nice sometimes at the end of the sharing session, I see people giving each other a hug they never met before, and it really warms my heart. It's so nice. And at the end of the session, once we've done a couple of rounds of journaling and then talking, we also tend to do another little sharing circle and meditation. And I remind people that if they opened up a topic that is sensitive, that it's okay also to close that and leave it in the session, or that their journal is always there for them so that you can come back to it and reflect a little bit more.
I understand 100%. How many sharing sessions and journaling sessions and sharing sessions you have inside a particular workshop?
If the workshop is an hour and a half, we will, depending on how much people have to journal, because I'm always kind of paying attention, how many people are still writing, do they need more time? One or two. I prefer two if it's possible. In the longer workshops that I do in the evenings, usually we have 3 hours, so we'll do 3 sharing sessions.
Okay, I understand. And you know, a lot of people may be hearing this and they are thinking if joining or not. What's the profile of people that used to go to these sessions?
It started out with mostly people that I was already friends with or friends of friends. Now I've actually hosted in Edinburgh as well. So I had one workshop in Scotland this summer.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. And a couple of yoga festivals this summer also invited me to host sessions. So I would say people from their 20s to 40s, probably from mid 20s up to late 30s is like the most common age bracket. And yeah, people that are in the city. At the yoga festivals, of course, you get people that are already interested in mindfulness or active in that kind of conscious space. My favorite sessions actually so far have been the ones that I hosted with natural wine, which is a different kind of combination. And that's really beautiful because you reach people that maybe come for wine and socializing, and then they actually end up going much deeper. So at the yoga festival, you already have people that are interested in connecting with themselves and being conscious and things like that. But a sort of wine-driven session that ends up being very deep and personal is a nice and it's interesting combination.
Oh, that's very interesting. I believe that after a cups of wine, you open up more.
Yeah, it's possible. And it's really nice because at the end of those sessions, I've seen people like sharing numbers, and maybe at the end of the class, or not the class, the workshop, people get to talk about themselves a little bit and saying like, oh, I'm looking for a job in this sector, or like they become friends. The last session I held, one of the participants created a WhatsApp group with the people that she had her sharing sessions with, and they decided to meet up and do a little talking cafe, which is essentially this sharing session, but outside. So it's kind of like a little peer support group, which I thought was so sweet and very nice.
Wow, that's very interesting because is this something that you should do once? How often do you hold these sessions?
Usually once per month.
Once per month. Is something that you need to do once per month, or then you can take that to your personal life? Or
You don't have to. I think once per month is nice as a sort of check-in with yourself. And if you do it on a regular basis, at the end of the session, we'll always set an intention. And then if you have done it the month before, you can also reflect back on what intention did I set last month? Did how did I how well did I stick to it? Did it serve me? Do I want to keep that intention, or do I want another focus in the coming weeks? But it's also totally okay to come every few months or whenever you feel called to have a session like that.
no, that's very interesting because I believe that so many people are thinking ways on how to improve their lives, and they say, "Oh, my life is so busy. I and I would like to do some journaling, but I have no time." I think once a month it could be a good cadence, right?
Yeah, yeah. And even if you have the idea that journaling is something that I should do, sometimes if you open a notebook and you have a blank page, and then you think, okay, but what do I write about? So that's why I like giving these prompts, because it's just much easier to have a topic where you will definitely find something that's going on in your life that is relevant to that prompt, and it sort of gets you going rather than having an empty page in front of you and thinking, okay, should I make a list? Should I have some deep and meaningful insight into my life immediately? Usually that comes with a little bit of time. That's why, we have multiple prompts and you have the sharing session so that you can draw insights, but it takes a little digging.
No, I understand. I understand 100%. So I'm very curious about this journaling process. Like you mentioned that we have a meditation, journaling, and sharing session. So let's focus in the journaling part. What Because it's also it's becoming increasingly popular in the social media and the internet. The importance of journaling. Why journaling is so important?
It can help you gather your thoughts and make sense of what's going on in your life rather than just, moving from day to day. And I think that it can really help you upgrade your life, because without the chance to sit down and take note of what's happening, what's good, and what I want to change, it would be very difficult to make a change. And the act of setting intentions, in this month, I would like to XYZ, it's something that you can come back to and hold yourself accountable. But without that time spent writing, it can be hard to even figure out what is it that I want to change, or what would benefit me. Or, if you have goals of, I would like to make a change in my career, the classic pros and cons list, that's an effective way of journaling. And then you can build on that by sort of inspecting your inner world and putting it on paper.
Okay, so I'm hearing that to dump into a piece of paper a lot of things that I have in my mind, that actually is a way to upgrade my life, because I can first put it into a paper and then come back to see what I did in the past and hold myself accountable, right?
Yes. Yeah, and seeing it on paper can make it much clearer to you.
Okay, okay, I see. What's the correct way of journaling? What's
I don't know if there's a correct way.
okay?
I believe in the book The Artist's Way, the method is to write 3 pages every morning,
Every morning.
and that is without any prompts. So that is one method of doing it. And if that helps you to wake up and think, okay, what did I dream about? What am I doing later? What's playing on my mind? Then thought dumping can be incredibly helpful. Maybe you want something that's a little bit more structured. Gratitude journaling is also very popular, especially on social media. Like maybe writing 3 things down in the morning, 3 things that I'm grateful for, is a nice way to start the day on a positive note.
Okay, we will go into the journaling, the gratitude journaling, because it's, as you mentioned, is very popular. But uh, does this need to be in the morning?
No, I think it's just a convenient time. It can also be at the end of the day. And actually, I think at the end of the day is also a nice time because you can think back of like, what are 3 positive things that happened to me today? So again, it's based on the facts, and it's a way of programming your brain also to focus on the positive things rather than our brain focusing on things that can be improved, or anxieties about things that we're worried might happen, so that we want to avoid. Our brain is trying to protect us by thinking of ways to avoid dangerous scenarios that might hurt us. And by taking the time to write down on paper positive things that happened, progress that happened, things that you're thankful for, it helps you. It can also calm your mind down and see, like, oh, okay, there's actually, we're not focusing on the danger. It can help to calm anxieties as well.
No, I find it fascinating actually. But there is one thing that caught my eye. It was this idea of progress. You know, like sometimes I hear from friends that, from my perspective, they are moving very fast, but they believe they are moving very slow. How come? How can journaling help them with this?
I think by if you do a monthly practice, for example, and you go back to what did I want and what was I proud of, what was I working towards 6 months ago, then probably you're going to see that you have made progress. And a nice reminder that you also sometimes see on social media or in a greeting card is like, the life that you're living now is one that you were dreaming about in the past, that a past version of you was imagining, like, oh, I will be so happy if I do this, this, and this. And then by the time you have it, you're already thinking, okay, how can my life be even better? And then you skip over the fact that you already achieved so much. Or you made progress in a different direction. That's also possible. Like maybe your life went in a different direction than you were expecting, but it still became better in some kind of way, or you have moved forward in some way. So I think just taking notice of the things that have changed in your life is a very powerful way of being grounded in reality and appreciating what you have done.
Yeah, I understand, 100%. Yeah, and why do you think it's so hard to dump things or step down in time and stop and write down things while when life is so complex?
I'm not sure. Um, Maybe it's not something that we necessarily grow up doing. So it's a practice that you might have to build in for yourself. Uh, I would be curious actually to talk to some, primary school teachers and or high school teachers even, to see if the the practice of written reflection is something that they do at all, because I think it would be a really beautiful thing for kids and teenagers to get a little, a confidence boost or something to calm them down, to see what's going on and what's good and what can I change, can help you be more aware of the real progress that you're making. But I think it can be hard to pick up any practice that's good for you, and it takes some work to make habits right. They say that if you do something every day for 2-3 weeks, then it will become a habit and it's not so much work anymore. But at the beginning it is, because something that you have to add on. Maybe you think, I have to go grocery shopping. Oh, I wanted to call this person. Oh, I should make plans for this. I don't have time to journal right now.
No, I understand. So if you are thinking in a person that needs to journal, so the prototype of a person that you see them and you say, oh, journaling would be fantastic for you, what comes to your mind?
Probably someone that's very busy and rushing forward.
Wow.
Yeah, someone that's in a rush. I would probably recommend journaling. Or maybe someone that is struggling and doesn't really know what they want to do next. Then the practice of writing down and exploring your inside could be helpful in finding direction.
Well, it's very interesting what you say, that the more busy you are, the less time you think you have, the more you need to stop and do journaling.
Yeah, and that's also part of why I wanted to create an event around journaling, to bring people together. That's something social. So I always offer, some refreshments, be it wine, be it tea, snacks, things like that. And it's a social thing. So in the city, there are always people that are new, that have just moved, and maybe they don't have friends that they're really close with, that they can talk to about their lives. So it's a nice way to meet people. So creating an event around a practice maybe can then give people the experience, like, oh, this was really valuable. I went because I wanted to hang out with people and have a nice evening. But my experience was that this journaling was valuable. So maybe now I want to integrate it into my daily practice or weekly, monthly practice.
Okay, I see. And the people that want to integrate that journaling into the daily or weekly practice, can they do it in the phone, or they need to have a journal written with pen and paper?
Absolutely, you can do it on your phone or your laptop. One of the sessions we had at the end, people started sharing what their experience had been like previously, and we had 2 people who had this very long established journaling practice, but they had never done the practice of with the sharing with somebody, and that was really interesting because both of them journal digitally, and I journal on paper. So I guess I just grew up writing pen on paper, and so I find it comforting and less distracting than being on a digital device. But having a one running Word document can be really nice also, because then you have access to it all the time. And if you have one document, let's say per month or per year, you can then go back and take a look at, what did you journal 1 year ago or 6 months ago, and see what has changed, how far have you come, and that can be really interesting. Plus, it's fast. So when I am thinking about how am I going to host my next workshop, for example, I often use my notes app to take notes of, like, what kind of prompt do I want to include, or I go to a class and I'm inspired by the meditation, that, like a yoga class, for example, then I'll take notes in my notes app. So there are also some of the phones. Apple has a journaling app that you can use. It can prompt you, like, hey, take a 10-minute walk and journal about the things that you saw, or take 10 minutes to gather your thoughts on what happened today, things like that.
Wow. No, but I hear also that it helps you not only to process your emotions, but also to perform better, right? So it's kind of, if you are a high performing person that is very busy and wants to deliver a lot of stuff, that this profile of person requires the most to do journaling. It's also helped them to be directionally more accurate with what they want, right? So it's, I mean, because I heard a part of um, you are planning what is your intention, where you want to go, and then it helps you keep accountable towards your direction. So if you want to perform more, it's a great tool.
Absolutely.
Wow, wow, that's very interesting actually. So what kind of questions should we ask ourselves while we are doing journaling?
I think it's nice to reflect on situations that were difficult for you, um, and challenges that you overcame, things that you really enjoy, things that make you feel at peace, and things that you would like to maybe achieve in the future. Another really nice way of using journaling is to reflect on your relationships and what you need and what you have to offer as well. So maybe, when you go on a first date with someone, they will ask you about yourself. And if you do that with yourself up front, then you actually have a much better idea of who you are as a person and who you might be compatible with. So it's a nice way of preparing yourself for kind of new relationships, because then you are more comfortable with who you are. And so it's kind of a nice way to prepare for opening up a relationship with somebody new.
That's really great. Even this reminds me a conversation I had with a previous guest, that she was a matchmaker, and she introduced the concept of relationship readiness, and a lot of the things that make you ready for a relationship are related with self-awareness, and how much you understand yourself, how much you understand your expectations towards the other people, and uh, journaling could help here a lot, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you probably do know yourself very well, but you're not aware of it because you haven't drawn attention to different things about yourself. Like, how do you tend to behave during a conflict? Or what makes you feel supported? How do you express love? Sometimes it can be nice to ask your friends questions about yourself because they see you maybe more clearly than you see yourself. And the act of journaling is asking yourself a question and reflecting on it, and then you actually can answer yourself, because it's just about giving some attention to that thing, and then you can learn what you already know but just become aware of it.
Okay, so diving deep into this, what questions should I ask myself if I want, if I'm in dating someone? What questions should I ask myself if I'm dating someone, or different people as well, about myself and the the other person?
Yeah, I think there are different elements to look at. Partially you can think about what are your desires, from maybe not the specific relationship with someone that you're dating, but in general, what do you want for your life? Are you the kind of person who wants to move countries every few years and have a lot of experiences like that? Are you very career driven? Would you like to have children? Do you have children? So that's kind of life goals is a good thing to be aware of to see if you're compatible with somebody else. And then things like, how do I receive love and how do I express love? I'm sure you've heard of the 5 love languages. It's a very simple thing, and there are plenty more. We don't have to oversimplify stuff, but it's a really nice thing to reflect on, because some people are, very uncomfortable with words of affirmation. They don't like to receive compliments, and they're not good at giving words of affirmation, but that doesn't mean that, they don't appreciate somebody else. And then reflecting on that and knowing, like, oh, hey, I am just much better with giving a thoughtful gift. That is my way of showing my appreciation for someone.
Okay. But let me stop you here for a second. For the people that actually don't know what the love languages are, because I find this is a beautiful example, would you mind give me a brief overview of them?
Sure. So the 5 love languages are defined as physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, and quality time.
Okay, so and these are ways in which we express our love to someone,
And also receive.
and we also receive them. And what problems we can face if two people, the two components of the partnership, of a couple, have different love languages.
I think a challenge can be that you might not recognize when your partner is expressing their love for you, because you don't speak their top love language as that well. So you might be a words of affirmation and physical touch person, and your partner or the person that you're dating is really into acts of service. And so you might not notice that when they take a task off your plate, or they make the bed for you when you left the house earlier, or they pick up dinner, things like that. You might not realize that that is them expressing an act of love. And so you might sort of take it for granted, which could, lead to struggles. Or you might feel unappreciated because your partner really doesn't like showing affection in public, and then you would want to hold their hand or give them a hug, and then you might feel rejected. And that's not because they don't love you, but it's just because that's not their love language, or it's not their favorite love language. So just by being aware of the way that, like, the love languages that you speak the best, is a great start. Also understanding what the other person's is really nice, because you don't have to change them or change yourself, but you can adapt based on, okay, I know this is going to be more meaningful to my partner, so I'm going to express it in the way that they understand.
No, 100%. So to sit down and ask yourself, what are my love languages? What is my love language? And write it down. And also doing it for your partner. I think my partner or the potential person I'm dating, you can do it for them as well, right?
Yeah, and I think a really beautiful journaling prompt might be, if you're reflecting on your relationship, would be taking a look at writing down each of the 5 love languages, and then taking a note of a time that you received love from your partner in those different ways.
Yeah, I understand 100%. It's not only about identifying your love languages, but also to reflect on particular or specific events in which that love was expressed, or I received love in that way.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Perfectly understood. So the third component of the connections and reflections is the active listening, or the sharing sessions.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that one of the things that people appreciated the most from reflections and connections was the sharing sessions. Why sharing was so important?
Well, I think the main reason it's so valuable is the feeling that you get of this safe space that you receive, of you simply get to express yourself, and that person is just going to listen to you and give you space, because that's rare. And it's normal that in our everyday lives we have conversations. So if I tell you about something that's going on in my life, a way to show that you empathize with me is for you to share something that is related to that you are going through. But that's a great way to to build a relationship, but it might not actually help me process my situation. What I might need is to talk about my situation more and just be heard. That's also a lot of what is happening when you go to a therapy session or a group session, where even if you think about something like Alcoholics Anonymous, you speak and the other people simply hear you. They don't tell you what to do because you can probably figure out for yourself what you need to do. So it's very helpful in that way. And then the other thing is just this warm and fuzzy feeling that people get of like, oh wow, I got to be vulnerable and they didn't judge me, and it's a really beautiful feeling.
And do you think this is very valuable because we lack those spaces in which we can talk and feel heard?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And sometimes also in a conversation, you're busy thinking about what am I going to respond, and you don't really listen that deeply because you want to make sure that you have something to say back. Otherwise, maybe people would think that you're not engaged. But so you don't listen as deeply as maybe you could. That would be really valuable for that other person. So the active listening and say like, hey, don't offer advice, just listen, just hear this person out, gives the speaker the chance to draw conclusions based on their own insights. And you also get to absorb everything the other person says.
No, I understand. It's very interesting. If you need to describe in a conversation a perfect listener, what are the elements that make him or her a good listener?
Probably allowing the other person to finish speaking.
Okay, that's
And I am not perfect at that because I love having an engaged conversation and bouncing back and forth. But I think allowing people to finish their thoughts and just this allowing people to learn from themselves, draw conclusions, and finish their thought process. Often we're thinking as we speak, so you need a little gap in between to make sure that everything came out the way that you needed it to.
so no interruptions is the first thing.
Ideally, I guess, yeah. No interrupting. And then having the person actually have paid attention to you and maybe get to reflect back at you like, okay, so what I'm hearing is whatever it is that you said. So kind of maybe you can summarize a little bit what that person said to bring clarity to the conversation and responding with something that's relevant to what they were talking about. And I think it depends on what the conversation is, but if you're talking about something intimate to you that you're going through in your life, it could be helpful to hear about somebody else's experience and how they dealt with it. But it might just be to ask more questions and let the other person explore more.
Okay, so first, not interrupting and allow them to finish. And second, release yourself from the responsibility of answering something afterwards.
Probably if you take a pause to let whatever the other person said settle first, you will think of something because it's very unlikely that you will have nothing to say. So it's all right to take a breath and then see what comes up and maybe just, ask more, be curious. I think a curious listener is a really wonderful thing.
Okay, deploying curiosity and asking questions
Yeah.
about what they are saying.
Yeah.
I really like what you said about summarizing with your own words what the other person said. How do you do it? How can you
I guess just listen and process and see, like, if you're curious and listening to somebody, like, you can always learn from what another person is saying, is going through. So summarizing what you learned from that person as you were listening can be helpful for both people, because the other person feels appreciated and you got some kind of insight, and then you can respond, or you can ask more questions about whatever it is that person is sharing.
It's very, very interesting. So, if I want to improve my listening and become a better friend, how can I do it?
Maybe by using some of the processes that we just talked about. I think just being really interested and caring when you listen to someone is a really nice and important way to show that you value them, and you're interested in them as a person. So I think, yeah, not interrupting most of the time. Sometimes it's relevant. Sometimes you really want to jump in before they change the subject. But yeah, I think just active listening can be this thing about reflecting back what you hear, and seeing whether actually you understood correctly, and then offering something thoughtful in return, or expressing more curiosity.
Yeah, I understand.
Maybe by not thinking about what I need to say next while the other person is speaking. It's like you can leave a gap to process what you've heard and then respond.
I understand. It's 100%. So we talked about active listening as a tool to improve your communication and your friendships. Do you think men and women communicate differently or listen differently? Because I'm saying this because in social media it's a common thing that, for example, men, we jump immediately when a woman is coming to talk with you about something that happened to her, to interrupt and jump immediately to find solutions and to offer help. Do you think that men and women communicate differently when they are sharing something?
Maybe. I'm not sure if it's as simple as dividing among gender, because we'll always be generalizing that way. It's possible. I think maybe what is a more relevant distinction is where people are at in their lives. I think someone who is a people manager in their work might hopefully be a good listener and be listening to learn from, like, the person that they are coaching, maybe. Or someone who's a parent is going to be a completely different kind of listener than someone who is in their early 20s and doesn't have any children. So possibly, I have heard people say that men are looking for solutions, but there are also a lot of women that are trying to be helpful in some kind of way, and also, offer you a way to fix whatever problem that you are expressing about.
And is this what we are looking for when we are sharing something? Solutions?
Sometimes, but not necessarily. I think a lot of times we just want to be heard, and we're actually doing the process that happens at Reflections and Connections, where we want to speak aloud. We want to share our issues with someone so that we can figure it out. But we really only need to be listened to. We don't actually need to be told. So, yeah.
No, that I understand, and also I've heard from Jordan Peterson, actually a conservative psychologist, that he mentions that you should not give advice, because if you give advice to someone that is sharing a problem with you, first, if the other person takes that advice and they solve their problems, whose victory is from? From you that you gave the advice, or from theirs? Did you steal their victory? And if they apply it and they don't succeed, they carry the responsibility of it. So,
Or they come to blame you.
or they come to blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is an important distinction to be made. And sometimes when someone comes to you with a problem, you can also ask, like, hey, do you want advice? Or do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to be your friend right now? Or do you want me to try and coach you? Do you want a solution? Or do you just want to get this off your chest?
Okay, so it's a good question
Yeah.
to ask. And okay, so coming back to the point of improving our active listening with friends, wanted to jump with a potential date that you have. You're dating with someone. The other day, a friend of mine told me that she was dating with a guy, and he ticked all the boxes. You know,
Okay.
like in the sense of he was an entrepreneur, he was handsome, you know, like smelled good, and he was very smart. But despite ticking all the boxes, what was bad for her is, and she said, he talked most of the conversation. Okay, so he was talking the most of it, like 90% of the conversation. The guy was overselling himself. I have this, I do this, I do that, and he didn't ask enough questions. So what would you say to a girl in that position that sees that they are dating a guy and they talk a lot?
Oof. I don't know how comfortable people are in giving feedback. I think it also depends on, do you think this person has potential? And maybe they're just really nervous, and so they're just verbal diarrhea because they really want to impress you.
Verbal diarrhea, I love that concept.
Or do you think this person is looking for a fan club and not really a relationship? If you think that you could really like this person, you like their energy, then maybe on a following date you could say like, oh yeah, I feel like I haven't actually been able to talk that much. Are you curious about getting to know me as well? It's great hearing about you, but otherwise we're having a one-way conversation. Or if you feel like, okay, this is not going to work out, I think offering feedback in relationships can also be incredibly helpful in the same way it can be in other contexts that are maybe more professional, and say like, oh, hey, I noticed this, and you might want to take note of this for future dates, because for me it was a turnoff that you didn't seem curious about me at all. There will probably be one person on the date that is more comfortable talking about themselves. But if you're not interested to ask questions about the person you're on a date with, then why are you there? Right?
Yeah, I understand. So do you think it's a good standard to have? Like, I want the other person to ask me questions, to actively listen what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, it's an interesting one.
They might not need to ask you questions. The conversation could just flow. Because, again, you come back to this thing of, you will probably have something relevant in your life that you can bring up. Like, oh, you told me about this trip you went on. Oh, I had a similar experience when I went there. And then the conversation will just naturally ebb and flow. You don't always have to be arriving with a list of mental questions to ask to someone. But I would definitely think that curiosity is a turn on. Like, you want someone to be interested in you because you want to be interested in them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be enjoying a date very much if I'm the only one that's talking and that other person has nothing to say.
I understand 100%. And what about in relationships that are already formed? what can I do to improve my active listening with them, with my partner?
Maybe it's a good idea is to set aside some time every so often to check in with each other. I know some couples that do a quarterly check-in, and they have a list of questions that they reflect on. But just setting some time aside where you have quality time and you're not rushing between making dinner and doing this or watching TV at the same time, but you sit and chat about what's going on for you. How are you feeling about different things in your life? How are you feeling about us? To check in, and can be a nice way to connect and stay on the same wavelength.
So it would be something similar to what you hold, the workshops that you hold, reflections and connections, quarterly, and with your partner.
Yeah.
I understand that correctly.
Yeah, and I haven't done this yet, but maybe I'll try it out. You can actually create the space where you pick a prompt, and then each of you expresses based on like whatever your thoughts are on that prompt without receiving feedback and simply being heard. So each of you does that, and then maybe you start the conversation so that you have this active listening or the quiet listening process happening, so that you really take the time to hear your partner, and then you also get to be completely heard by them without being interrupted by you could change this or what about if you did that, and you just get to express, get things off your chest and share with your partner, let them into an intimate part of your life.
That's really great. You know, like especially because there is, what pops to my mind right now is that there are relationship apps in which both parties, they download the app and they receive the same question periodically. They get some questions about their relationships, and the whole model of the app and the business model they have is to receive questions for both of the partners. So I think to put together this question and sit down and talk about it and listen to the other person, it could be useful.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great thing to do, because the better you know your partner, the more you understand them, the better your relationship can be, because you can respond to their needs in the way that is most meaningful to them, and in return the same thing will happen to you. So hopefully what that does is bring you closer. And also, if there is maybe something that is bothering one of you, you get the chance to address that and workshop it, work through that before it becomes a problem. So maybe if you have a quarterly check-in, you also create the space that if there is something that isn't quite right, you address it in this structured way, so that you don't put pressure on the people in the relationship to start like a confrontation, like, hey, let's sit down, I have something I want to talk about. That's so scary. But if you have a container in which you're doing this on a regular basis, then it might come up, before it becomes a big issue, because you don't have to wait until it gets so bad that you have to talk about it.
No, I understand. Well, so I think that we discussed about connections and reflections. We discussed about journaling and about sharing and active listening.
Yeah.
Is there something that we are missing from the conversation that is related with the workshops you're holding?
I think we talked about most of the elements. I would love it if anyone who's interested can, get in touch with me or check out the Instagram. And I'll be hosting more events next year. I'm really curious to hear about other people's experiences, to know if someone has this kind of process with their partner where they have a set, of prompts or questions that they talk about on a regular basis, or if that's an active practice in anybody's life. And I'm always also keen to learn about different types of themes that might be valuable for people so that I can design a series of prompts based on a certain theme that could help someone.
Okay, I understand. You mentioned Instagram? How people can find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram for the event series is reflections.connections. And my personal Instagram is linked there as well, so I'm pretty active there.
Okay, I'm going to put the links to your profiles in the description of the episode.
Nice.
And before wrapping up, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for joining this conversation. I think that what we discussed today is going to be useful, or at least trigger the curiosity to the people that listens to this, and the fact that you are creating a space for people to share, to reflect, share about themselves, and also to connect and become friends is something that it's very, very important and useful, specifically in a moment in which we are living in loneliness epidemic, and that your contribution is in every workshop you are holding is creating an impact. And I wanted to thank you for your work, and I hope to see you in another episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for being so curious and such a good listener, and for your kind words. I can reflect it back at you. I'm really curious to see all the conversations that you have with other people. It's on the topic of compatibility and relationships across the board. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you very much.
And also thanks to you for listening to Beyond Compatibility. I really hope this episode gave you new insights to deepen your connections and reflect on what truly matters in your relationships. If you found value in today's conversation, please consider sharing it and subscribing so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring what makes us truly compatible, changing the way we relate one conversation at a time.